3. Oh no! Okay, someone else, not me. Freaking out, deep breath. Guys, game 3, currently 1-1 in the series in the Go for StarCraft Monday Finals. And spawning here in the lower right corner of the map, he is your Red Zerg player, the European powerhouse and DreamHack Bucharest champion. It is Acer's Nerchio. And his opponent spawning opposite of him in the lower left corner of Newkirk. He is your DreamHack Summer champion. Give it up for mYi Stardust. Now, what I'm actually going to take a second here, thanks to the ESL website, like, there's a lot of things about different websites I get frustrated with. One of the cool things for ESL is it does show you who these guys played. And Stardust, guys, had to fight Erase Me, Adele Scott, Goody, Snikes, and Risk to get to where he is to fight Nerchio. And at least 3 names on those lists are people who could have very easily been here in the finals as well. His opponent on the other side, though, had to go through Modern Death, Nomi, SLH Tenyu, to get here to the finals, and unfortunately I don't know a lot of those names, but Nomi is a pretty good Protoss player, so Nerchio also battling his way through the ranks to get here to the finals. People are calling the early Stargate all-in, very early to call that. I don't know, I don't think... On Newkirk it's interesting, you can try and pull that off because of what I described in game 1 with the whole, like, you bring 5 Void Rays, snipe off the layer, you know, then recall out. It's not something too easy to pull off, though. Stardust going super extra annoying with his probe, though, trying to deny the close mineral patches. Of course, Nerchio doesn't really care. Some players will go as far as to try and outclick you to get the mineral patches, but a lot of the time it's like, whatever. Like, it's more effort on your part than mine to, like, miss that close mineral patch for 3 rounds. I'm trying to think, like, Stardust, unfortunately, I don't know, like... Nerchio, like I said earlier, he's a very experienced player. Not to call Stardust inexperienced, but Nerchio's just been around for so much longer. I really feel that even with HOTS being the way it is, anything that Stardust could throw at him that would be anything close to ordinary, Nerchio will be prepared for. And his best bet's probably to do something a little out of the ordinary to try and catch Nerchio off guard. And we saw Stardust do some really cool out of the ordinary things today. But a Forge Fast Expand is a very safe opening versus a player like Nerchio. Just trying to think, like, it's really interesting. If you guys have ever observed Nerchio before, I say observed like he's a wild animal. Like, in the plains of, you know, Zervus, we have the wild Nerchio skulking across the minerals. But no, if you've ever watched Nerchio play, you'll notice 2 very distinct hard points about him. One is the fact that when he wants to play defensive, you will almost never crack that shell. For example, game 1. When he wants to play aggressive, he will ravage you to bits. Again, referencing back to game 1. But that's not just this game or this series or today. He's a player who, like, when he wants to do something, he sets his sights on it, he will accomplish it. But taking an early 3rd base, something very typical. I'm a little shocked he didn't go for the inner close base, but this could be to save it for later on. Of course, this base is a little more vulnerable to pushes than the northern base, and its creep spread, blah blah blah, etc., etc., makes it a little bit nicer to defend, but by taking this northernmost base, it's also much further away from pushes, and Stardust, if he comes across the field with, say, like a Sentry Immortal all-in, would have to go very far out of his way to shut this down, instead of having it be on the way. Nerchio just scouting around right now, wants to make sure there's no proxies up. He's actually got some pretty nice Overlord positioning. Sees the gas count here at the natural. Or rather, will see the gas count here at the natural. There's no gases yet to see. And one big fearful thing about this map, this base layout, is with how wide the base is here and the main base for both players, one thing that's very easy to pull off is hiding a pylon and also a Nidus Worm. Now, I doubt Nerchio would go for a Nidus Worm, especially against a player like Stardust, but I've seen a lot of other players, my favorite, of course, being TLO, utilize Nidus Worms in very sneaky ways on the older version of this map. Of course, the only thing that really changed about this map was this center area, of course, not too much about the main, and of course, removing the watchtowers. I'm surprised, though, Stardust is still floating around with this probe. He's not been picked off at this point. Zealot coming across the field. Is just going to scout. Yeah, like, I'm looking at the assessment here for Stardust, and he's not doing anything weird, but he's not doing anything that makes sense either, because, like, okay, he's got 1 Zealot. The Zealot can fight the Queen, but Nerchio can fight with the Queen. And yeah, just going to chase that for the time being. Meanwhile, northward, we got the probe again, trying to find a good place to put a proxy pylon down without being scouted. And no, it's all just going to chill out. Probably walk back home, might even go northward, but he doesn't want to give away what's going on to the Overlord that is nestled there. Back home, though, we got the Twilight Council already on the field. Our Robo Bay is up. I think Warp Prism would be really cool for Stardust to try and utilize against a player like Nerchio, but again, you're not going to catch Nerchio off guard like, oh, I snuck a Warp Prism in, he didn't see it, ha ha ha. No, that will never happen against a player like Nerchio. Yeah, observers floating across the field, and Nerchio back at home, meanwhile, adding on his additional gases, has his layer tech up and available, or sorry, is on his way to layer tech, sorry, I thought that was already finished. Sticking with the Roaches for the mid-game, a really solid choice. Roaches are kind of universally good against most of what comes out of the mid-game for Protoss players. Actually, Roaches kind of universally good, period, for the mid-game against almost all races and matchups. Nerchio, having seen that probe go up north earlier, is scouting around for the pylon, but there's no pylon, just a probe. And he's going to lose the probe.
First blood.
Alright, well that took a hell of a long time, but finally something did die on the map. Had my finger on the trigger, ready to go. Meanwhile, at the main here, the Spire is not being made at the main. In fact, it is being hidden at the second base. The natural, if you will. Third base for Stardust on the way, and this is one of those things that's like... this matchup is great once the action picks up. But you've got that 10-minute period it takes for anyone to actually move across the field, where it's like, okay, I'm just basically reading you guys what you already see. Kind of full of bullshit. But the attack on this actually might be enough to make Stardust cancel the Nexus. No, not with the additional weapons. He should be okay. Sentries, of course, are really great at dealing with Roaches. A big part of that is because you cut the forces in half. Yeah, I don't know, just slow game out of both players, but that's perfectly fine. Nerchio, I think, is going to be a lot happier playing slow than Stardust will. Stardust with 3 bases. A Protoss player is nothing to be kind of winstant, and if you've got 3 bases, you're going to have a lot of production. It's the difference between 2 robos of production and 1. But Nerchio just able to take a 4th. Hell, he'll probably take a 5th if nothing comes his way anytime soon, or at least try and put on some aggression. But here comes some force fields, or some force, well, they're walking force fields. It's the sentries marching across the map. And the Mothership core positioned the way it is, if this doesn't go nicely, he can always recall. That is the huge advantage to having this on the field this early. 10 Mulas, though, on the way here, and one scary thing for Stardust is he doesn't have a lot of, or really any, anti-air. The second he catches one of these Mulas, I imagine he'll throw down 2 extra Stargates. Until that point, though, sorry, I'm trying to not sneeze on microphone here. Until that point, though, these Mutalisks are actually going to run pretty rampant over the Sentries. Sentries are okay. Guardian Shield helps with the glaive bounces, of course, but they're not too good at dealing with Mutalisks. And if there's one thing I've seen in recent days, it's a lot of Zerg players starting to overpower Protoss with Mutalisks. If you hit before, say, Archons are on the field, Storms, it's really hard to deal with this. Of course, the double Stargate is a good response as well. We'll see what Stardust decides to invest in. Coming in here to the main, though, Photon Overcharge is pop. Going to focus down the cannon. Will not be able to get it before being forced out of the natural, going straight, or into the natural, rather. No overcharge available here. Going to pick off quite a few probes, but Stardust on the offensive is going to have to worry about this Zergling run-by getting out of the cannon at the 30. Doesn't have another overcharge available, pulling all of his workers. Nerchio kind of running Stardust rampant. He's coming here to the north, splitting his forces between the third and the natural. Still a lot of spine crawlers up, though, so Stardust cannot push without that Immortal. And if the Immortal's picked off by this, it's actually not going to lose him to the Mutalisks. There's not enough back at home, but meanwhile, Stardust has lost pretty much everything at home. When you look at the worker count dwindling, Nerchio has essentially forced the base trade out of Stardust because Stardust cannot macro out of this. Now the Immortals are just chipping away at the spine crawlers, but Nerchio, if he just turns around with the Mutalisks, will clean up everything at home. Stardust has got a lot of workers still in the field, but he lost so much to this. The Nexus is going to fall down. Hold the phone. Nerchio is not going to keep focusing. Stardust instead has done enough damage to draw the attention of his opponent back home. Both players picked off quite... Well, actually, only one player picked off quite a few workers. Nerchio, they're going to lose this base. Everything now funneling back in. Stardust desperately trying to get some more Stalkers up. Force fields go down because, of course, drones do a ton of damage. They will focus fire down the Immortal. Not enough force fields are here, but the Stalkers are going to take out these Mutalisks. No guard... Actually, a single Guardian Shield does help defend this. But oh, the Immortal falls, and that sucks because now the Roaches can be reinforced. But instead, it's going to be Zerglings, and GG is called! What? Stardust taking a victory out of that. That looked really bad for Stardust there, guys. I thought he was going to be out, but Nerchio throwing in the towel at the end.